Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 7 o'clock main news. In tonight's headlines, millions of Muslims continue to celebrate Eid al-Adha holiday as the Hajj pilgrimage season winds down. Islamic State militants extend attacks in the Syria border areas as US-led airstrikes target IS sites in Iraq. Indian and Pakistani troops resume clashes with both sides accusing the other of provoking the violence. And fighting rages unabated at the airport near Donetsk despite a ceasefire declared a month ago. Over 2 million Muslim pilgrims began leaving the holy city of Mecca, concluding the annual Hajj, during which Saudi leaders lashed out at Islamic extremism. The Kuwaiti Hajj mission is in full swing to prepare for the arrival of the Kuwaiti pilgrims from Mecca following the conclusion of the Hajj ritual. The head of the media committee in the Kuwaiti Hajj mission and director of the information department of the Ministry of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs, Ahmed Rashid Al-Qarawi, said that all Kuwaiti pilgrims have performed their rituals safely and are preparing to complete all the services and leave the holy sites starting from today. Iraqi forces supported by popular recruits again clashed with Islamic State militants in the town of Duluya as the United States expanded its air war against the Islamic State, hitting the militant group for the first time with airstrikes launched from US helicopters. Officials with the US Central Command, which oversees military operations in the Middle East, said that US troops had launched 3 strikes in Syria and 6 in Iraq. 4 of the strikes in Iraq occurred northeast of the western city of Fallujah, while 1 occurred southeast of Hit and another was carried out northeast of Sinjar. The airstrikes come as the militants who have rampaged across northern Iraq are increasingly using water as a weapon, cutting off supplies to villages, resisting their rule and pressing to expand their control over the country's water infrastructure. The threat from the IS militants is so critical that US forces are bombing the militants close to both the Mosul and Haditha dams on a near daily basis, but the militants continue to menace both facilities. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that the Islamic State group is about to capture the Syrian border town of Kobani as outgunned Kurdish forces struggle to repel the extremists with limited aid from US-led coalition airstrikes. Islamic State fighters using tanks and heavy weapons looted from captured army bases in Iraq and Syria have been pounding Kurdish forces in the strategic town for days and planted their black flag on the town's outskirts after seizing several nearby villages in an offensive launched last month. The Turkish president said the coalition air campaign launched last month would not be enough to halt the Islamic State advance and called for greater cooperation with the Syrian opposition, which is fighting both the Islamic State and forces loyal to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Nadia Ali has the story.
Kurds clashed with police in the southeastern province of Cizre last night after Turkey's pro-Kurdish People's Democratic Party called for nationwide street demonstrations to protest an IS assault on Kobani, where the situation was described as extremely critical. Protesters blocked the streets, stopped cars, and conducted identification checks as they let off fireworks and opened fire into the air. The IS fighters advanced into the southwest of the Syrian Kurdish town of Kobani overnight, a monitoring group said today, taking several buildings to gain attacking positions from 2 sides of the city. According to journalists viewing from across the nearby Turkish border, 2 IS flags were still visible over the eastern side of Kobani. Since it began its offensive in mid-September, the IS group has barreled through one Kurdish village after another as it closed in on Kobani, its main target. Warplanes believed to have been sent by the US-led coalition struck positions nearby today in an effort to recapture the town. The US-led coalition has launched several airstrikes over the past 2 weeks near Kobani in a bid to help Kurdish fighters defend the town, but the strikes appear to have done little to slow the militant offensive. Turkey has so far made no move to join the fight against the IS close to its borders, beyond returning fire at militant fighters in response to mortar shells landing on Turkish territory. Over the weekend, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan vowed to retaliate if the IS attacked Turkish forces, and yesterday Turkish tanks deployed along the border for the second time in a week, with some guns pointing towards Syria, apparently in response to stray fire. Still, the groups released last month of 46 Turkish hostages in a parliamentary motion last week allowing Turkish troops to cross into Syria and Iraq have raised expectations that Ankara may be planning a more active role. But Ankara is wary of helping Syrian Kurdish forces near Kobani, as they have strong links with the PKK, which the Turkish state fought for 3 decades.
The Palestinian Authority harshly criticized Israel's decision to move forward with new settlements in East Jerusalem that would make world nations question Israel's ultimate commitment to a peaceful negotiated settlement with the Palestinians. Meanwhile, the White House resumed criticism of the Israeli decision to build more settlements, with Press Secretary Josh Earnest saying that it would send a troubling message. Our correspondent in Ramallah, Fatma Abdul Karim, has the details in the following report.
The Palestinian Authority denounced the new Israeli attempt to allow groups of fundamentalist Jewish settler groups from carrying out a systematic tour in Al-Aqsa Mosque tomorrow, which Palestinians describe as a provocative raid. The Israeli forces have closed down access into Al-Aqsa Mosque, but only for Palestinians, who are also celebrating Al-Adha despite the imposed hardships and movement restrictions and the increased settler raids.
Despite the Eid, Israeli authorities imposes an internal closure and movement restriction inside Jerusalem aiming at impeding our lives. But we still call on all to resist this suffering caused by the Israeli occupation and not allow the Israeli schemes to divide Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Tomorrow is expected to witness 2 organized raids of Jewish settlers in early hours of the morning and at noon. The 2 raids were called for by Talmudic students in Jerusalem, who called for banning Palestinians from accessing the holy site of Al-Aqsa. As a result, the Israeli forces imposed a closure on Palestinians, which is expected to heighten tomorrow, along with the expected raids.
The situation is become more and more difficult. The Israel are heightening restriction on Palestinians during the Eid because of the Jewish holidays. Make it impossible for Palestinians to access Al-Aqsa Mosque for Palestinians, but not for Jewish.
Last week witnessed several organized raids into Al-Aqsa Mosque by settlers, which the Palestinian Authority warned would lead to a new cycle of violence. While it is becoming clearer that the Israeli government, by providing cover to the provocative measures of fundamentalist groups, it is also pushing the situation towards a new clash on a religious basis. Fatma Abdul Karim, Kuwait TV, Ramallah, Palestine.
Egyptian troops killed several members of an Al-Qaeda-inspired militant group in the rest of Sinai Peninsula as they continue operations to rein in extremists in the region. In offences south of Sheikh Zayed and Rafah cities in North Sinai, army forces killed 16, injured 6 others and arrested 4 members of the Ansar Bayt al-Maqdis group that has claimed responsibility for several attacks on the army and police recently. The incident came as the group vowed to carry out deadly attacks against security forces during the Eid holidays, which end today. Militant attacks have killed hundreds of police and army personnel since August of 2013. For its part, the army said routinely announced the killing or arrest of militants, mainly in the tumultuous Sinai Peninsula. Iran and the UN nuclear watchdog were expected to hold talks in Tehran today, their first since the country missed an August deadline for addressing questions about its suspected atomic bomb research. Iran's official IRNA news agency said an IAEA delegation would start talks with Iranian officials to discuss the remaining issues about Iran's peaceful nuclear program, but gave no further details. Meanwhile, Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said that Western efforts to stop Iran's peaceful nuclear progress have so far remained futile since Iran has achieved the necessary know-how and its scientists' knowledge cannot be restricted. He described disputes over Iran's peaceful nuclear program as fabricated crisis and noted that depriving Tehran from its nuclear program cannot be the proper solution to the issue. India and Pakistani troops fired bullets and mortar shells across the Kashmir border area for the second day today, with both sides accusing the other of provoking the violence. Police in both countries said troops exchanged fire for hours overnight, killing a Pakistani man and injuring at least 22 others. Tens of thousands of villagers on both sides have fled their homes near the border for safety. India accused Pakistan of starting this week's skirmishes, suggesting Pakistan was trying to create a distraction to help separatist militants move across the line of control. Pakistan has repeatedly denied this. International Criminal Court prosecutors said today that Kenya is refusing to comply with repeated requests for information that could form evidence against the country's president, who is charged with instigating deadly post-election violence in 2007-2008. A prosecution lawyer said a hearing that prosecutors and Kenyan authorities have reached a deadlock in efforts to gather potential evidence against President Uhuru Kenyatta, such as phone records and tax returns. Kenyatta, who faces crimes against humanity charges for allegations that he helped instigate violence that left more than 1,000 people killed, told the nation in an address before Parliament that he would temporarily step down as president. The court ordered him to attend a status hearing tomorrow, denying his request that he participate by video. The hearing would be the first time a sitting president attends an ICC session, a mark Kenyatta's political supporters have urged him to avoid. Fighting continued between Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian separatists near the northeastern city of Donetsk airport today, despite a ceasefire declared a month ago. The separatists claimed that Ukrainian forces had retreated from the airport, although heavy fighting for positions at the main terminal was still ongoing. The fighting, focusing on the airport of the rebel-held city, shows the difficulties of enforcing a truce that has held in most other areas of eastern Ukraine since it was declared on September 5th. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk said that 2 drones have been delivered to the country so international observers can monitor the shaky ceasefire in the area. He added that Russia is doing nothing to mitigate the hostilities, accusing Moscow of stationing troops in Ukraine, a claim Russia has denied. The leadership of Hong Kong's democracy movement agreed to engage in formal dialogue with the government after the ninth day of protest began, with protesters visibly flagging from their prolonged occupation of 3 key areas of the city. According to sources, representatives from the 2 student groups leading the protest engaged in a second round of preliminary talks with a government official overnight. As the protest sites were still occupied, the Undersecretary of Constitutional and Mainland Affairs, Ray Lau, was set to meet with the student leaders again today to set a time and place for talks with Chief Secretary Carrie Lam and Deputy of Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying. Earlier, the students refused to meet with Leung, calling for his ouster as well as for the right to choose the successor through free elections. The first ever Kuwait Tech Meetup kicked off at Gus University, a collaboration of the Ministry of State for Youth Affairs and the US Embassy. The meetup will gather on a monthly basis with the help of established US entrepreneurs to help support and further Kuwait startups. Badriya Saleh brings us more in this report.
If you've checked up on your social media accounts this week following the local trends, you've probably already learned a thing or two about Kuwait Tech Meetup. Last night, Gus University hosted Kuwait's first ever tech meetup, seeing hundreds gather to participate.
I promised earlier that I would try to bring the best of America to Kuwait, and tonight we are doing just that. We are bringing new ideas, new ways to move people and move people's minds, and I want you all to understand this. This is one of the best things that we have to offer to the world. I've been the ambassador here for less than 2 months. And already I have met a number of very interesting, creative, and energetic entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs in Kuwait. And I'm very optimistic about the future of this program.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely amazing. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting into, you know. not only from just getting off the plane and never being to Kuwait before, but actually interacting with the communities. I didn't know what to expect. And what actually happened inspired me. There's so many entrepreneurs out here trying to build things. There's so many people that are interested. The conversation is happening over and over again through different parts of the city. So I was really impressed with the level of thought that's going into building a startup business, and it's really exciting.
By definition, in short, meetups are a large network of social groups serving as an easy way for anyone to organize a local group or find one of the thousands already meeting up face-to-face in their area. Kuwait Tech Meetup was made specifically to cater to the local young entrepreneurs in attempts to spread new ideas, support local startups, and connect with the local scene.
So really, we just want to put amazing people in a room together. We want to make it interesting for them, and we want to get people to start talking. So hopefully people interact, they meet somebody they have never met before, and they see some amazing things. So the whole formatting of this event is to actually do that.
Kuwait Tech Meetup is a collaboration of the Ministry of State for Youth Affairs and the U.S. Embassy here in Kuwait, in efforts to both strengthen relations between the two and serve the aim of the ministry to prioritize supporting Kuwait's youth. Each month, Kuwait Tech Meetup will work in collaboration with the U.S. Embassy to bring entrepreneurs and guests like Jason Saltzman in order to help Kuwait's entrepreneur scene grow and expand. At Gus University, I'm Badriel Saleh reporting for the English News.
2 scientists in Japan and 1 at the University of California at Santa Barbara were awarded this year's Nobel Prize for Physics for helping create the LED light, a transformational and ubiquitous source that now lights up everything from our living rooms to our flashlights and even our smartphones. The awarding committee said the trio work is in keeping with the spirit of Alfred Nobel, the founder of the prize, because LED lights save energy, last longer and are environmentally friendly because they don't contain mercury. The committee said the 3 winners will share the $1.2 million attached to the prize, while the Nobel Prizes in chemistry, literature and economic sciences will be announced later this week, as well as the Nobel Peace Prize. For a chance to see our reports again, please visit our YouTube channel at MOI Kuwait News. And to recap tonight's news, here are the headlines once again. Millions of Muslims continue to celebrate Eid al-Adha holiday as the Hajj pilgrimage season winds down. Islamic State militants extend attacks in the Syria-Turkey border area as US-led airstrikes target IS sites in Iraq. Indian and Pakistani troops resume clashes with both sides accusing the other of provoking the violence. And fighting rages unabated at the airport near Donetsk despite a ceasefire declared a month ago. Thank you for joining us. Have a good evening.